Hi, I'm Karen Bates from the Apple Farm in Mendocino County. We're going to make a pie today, and I'm going to show you the way my grandma used to make pumpkin pie. My mom actually never used a real pumpkin for a pie. She always used canned pumpkin, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's one of the few things that actually cans just beautifully, and you shouldn't feel at all like you're not doing it right if you don't use a real pumpkin. So I use a generous 2 cups of flour because it's a little bit of a generous recipe on the fat. So if you use big scoops of flour, that kind of evens it out. About a teaspoon of salt is what we want. We'll mix that in. Cut the butter into the flour, and I think the easiest thing to do is put half the fat in and smear it pretty well. You want a light, crisp pie crust. So it's really important to handle it in a light way. And then this second half of the butter that goes in is going to be left in bigger pieces, and that's what's going to kind of make the flakes in the pie crust. And the next step is to add the water, and I am going to use nice cold water. So I'm going to add, maybe 3 tablespoons, I'm guessing, of water here. And at this point you can make your pie crust tough with overhandling. And this is where people get nervous. And I think it's important to get enough water in here, though, to really get your crust to come together. I have this nice flattened disc here, and I want to make sure that there's plenty of flour on it, because at this point I don't want it to be sticking to anything. So I'm just going to flour it here in the bowl. If at this point your crust is feeling a little dry to you, you probably wouldn't put the extra flour on it, and maybe you want to cover it with a damp towel just to make sure that it stays kind of moist. And at this point I'm just going to stick this uncovered into the refrigerator for about 15 minutes, which will firm it up just a little bit. I don't want to go any longer than that. So the pie crust filling is really pretty straightforward. It's actually a custard, and the only thing you need to worry about is not to overcook it or to cook it at too high of a temperature. I'm going to start with the pumpkin that comes from our Musqué de Provence. First I strain it. I would just pour all this into a strainer and kind of squeeze it out to get rid of some of the excess moisture. And after it's drained, run it through the blender, or I used an immersion blender, and then I added a portion of the cream measurement and blended it. I do want to beat the eggs a little bit, so I'm just going to break these into the bowl. And then we just want to whisk these up to get them kind of smooth and homogeneous before we start adding the other ingredients. I'm using this organic sugar, which I like to use as much as possible. It has a little bit of a molasses flavor to it. Pie is really all about spices, and I'm going to use cinnamon. I use more of a scant measurement. So let's get that in here. I'm going to use a little bit of nutmeg because I love using my mom's nutmeg grinder, or grater I should say. I'm just going to use a scant measurement on the powdered ginger, and then I'm going to take this piece of fresh ginger and grate it with a microplane, which is a really good way to do it. That way you don't have to chop it up at all. I think it's a really good addition. So now the other ingredient here is cloves, and cloves are wonderful, and we just need to add the salt. Salt is a really important ingredient in baking. It really helps bring out the flavors. So let's just mix this up, and now we just need to add our pumpkin and cream mixture. And I think let's add the rest of the cream and we'll be ready. And that's ready to go. So now we just need to roll out our pie crust. So what I want to do is just to flour this board generously. Put your crust back down, and then a little more flour on the surface. You don't want it to start sticking. This is rolling out beautifully. So then I like to lay the pie plate down. I want to have enough extra crust to turn it under to get my crimped edge and have it be thick enough. Now, crimping is one of those things that gets passed down from mother to daughter. So I pinch in and out at the same time, and that makes a really pretty crust. So it's always kind of hard to figure out how to physically get the filling into the pie crust, but I think a ladle is a good idea. And I'm using this bowl just to catch the drips, because I don't want to get drips on the edge of my pie crust. That goes right in the middle of the oven, and for about 15 minutes, and then turn it way down. I also will probably open the oven door so that it doesn't cook too fast. So it's nice to put this on a cooling rack if you have one. It needs to set up and really it can be kind of room temperature when you cut it. I don't ever like to put it away in the refrigerator before I eat it, not on the first night. And I love it for breakfast, and I usually just let it sit on the counter. After that, it should go in the refrigerator if you haven't finished it yet. But it looks just perfect. I'm very happy with it.